Hey fellas, how you doing? I know it's been a while since I last uploaded, but things in my life have been kinda crazy lately. Some really big and uncomfortable changes. But I am hoping to get back to uploading at least 2 videos a month from now on. Today we're going to be talking about Genestealer cults. In my opinion, the scariest and most fascinating aspect of the Tyranid forces. In earlier editions of Warhammer lore, they weren't sure if they were aliens or chaos, but they have since been retconned to be the earliest Tyranid invasion forces in the galaxy, possibly entering the Milky Way via Space Hulk from the warp. And for those of you who don't know somehow, a Space Hulk is an amalgamation of ships that were lost in the warp over time, and they are seen as incredibly valuable and incredibly dangerous artifacts, as they can often be full of Genestealers or demons. But they can also be full of lost technologies and recyclable materials, making the risk more than worth it to most Space Marine chapters and planetary governors. Genestealers themselves are very clever and semi-autonomous tyrannids. They invade the cities of humanoid species, infect members of the lower classes with their DNA, and over time breed a psychic gestalt of human Genestealer hybrids, some of which can even pass as human. And the reason Genestealers have human-like hands instead of the sickle-like appendages of typical tyrannids is because of the influence of the human DNA on them, although the claws that they possess are still just as sharp as the sickles of a more traditional tyrannid bioform, capable of punching through the ceramite armor of even the Space Marines. Genestealer cults can often be found in the lower levels of Imperial hive cities, and can often be mistaken for chaos cults or gangs of mutants, and can often be inadvertently kept in check by the gangs of the respective hive cities. However, these cults exist for one reason and one reason alone: to sabotage the planetary defense forces of the Imperium's worlds, leaving them open to full Tyranid hive fleet invasions, stealing guns, ammunition, vehicles, fuel, all in the name of softening up the planets for the hive fleets, making it easier for the greater forces to absorb the world's biomass, which can include the cultists themselves, which is why they often leave the planet so that they can spread to another world before they're consumed. And there are currently 6 major Genestealer cults known to exist throughout the Imperium, each cult having many smaller sects spread out throughout the Imperium, with the best known of them being the Cult of the Four-Armed Emperor, masters of guerrilla warfare who would use hit-and-run tactics to destroy the forces of the Imperium, who have managed to survive in the home turf of the Ultramarines themselves, numerous banners of theirs being found throughout the Ultima Segmentum. Then there is the Hive cult, known for infiltrating the ranks of the Astra Militarum itself, using their training methods and weapons against them, or as they see it, liberating the world for its rightful rulers. Next we have what might be my favorite of the Genestealer cults, the Cult of the Bladed Cog. This particular group of Genestealers is more akin to the Mechanicus, as they will often have just as many cybernetic augmentations as they do xenos mutations, and they are most commonly found in the underbellies of Forge worlds, and are more often than not locked in combat with the Scutari protecting said worlds. The Cult of the Rusted Claw are the nomadic warriors of the Genestealer cults, more at home in the dead wastelands surrounding hive cities than in their underbellies. Their symbol is meant to represent the great worm devouring flesh and steel alike, best known for attacking and sabotaging the Imperium's mines, and are often reliant on Genestealer psychers known as maguses to help lead their troops in their conflicts. The Pauper Princes are especially zealous cultists, who will often throw themselves into danger to protect their leaders, sometimes going as far as to build literal walls out of their own corpses. This is a Warhammer setting after all, so I feel like every faction has to have their own zealous crusaders. And for the Genestealers, this is the cult for them. Not that they get to choose, they're born into it, but I think you get what I mean there. Lastly, we have the Twisted Helix cult, which spreads through medicine that is created on one of the Imperium's manufactorial worlds. This is also the cult with the widest range of mutations, often relying on the brutish biophages to carry them through battlefields. But we'll talk more about those in a little bit. This cult is something of a biological augmentation alternative to the Mechanicus, believing that by tampering with their human and Genestealer DNA they can ascend to godhood, which makes them especially deviant for Genestealers, and would probably put them at odds with the Pauper Princes. And none of these cults seem to be exclusive to any particular hive fleet. So if you decide to run a Genestealer army yourself, you can have them associated with whatever hive you want them to be. Known or unknown, I don't care, do what you want. At the center of every Genestealer cult is a patriarch, an evolved pure strain Genestealer that essentially feeds off of the psychic energy of its underlings, waiting in the shadows for his time to rise up and destroy the humans on the world. They are larger and stronger than even a Primaris space marine, and according to the Codex, looking into their eyes is like staring into a void, where anyone who is forced to do so feels the enormity of a Tyranid hive fleet staring back at them, and can't help but feel insignificant in the greater scheme of the universe. And given the fact that Tyranids are already able to erase their existence from the minds of their victims they infect, that's just a new level of terrifying. Because this is a grimdark setting, you can imagine that these people remember it on some kind of subconscious level, forever haunted by something they saw but can never recall. Like the ghost of a nightmare. And just to make things a little more confusing, I have to point out that a Genestealer Patriarch is not the same thing as a Genestealer Broodlord. A Broodlord is a powerful creature in its own right, but much less subtle. The easiest way to distinguish between the two would be to say that a Patriarch plays the long game while a Broodlord plays the short game, diving headfirst into combat instead of hiding into the shadows and building up their forces. I have the 8th edition codex for Genestealer cults, and the Broodlord isn't even mentioned in the book, so this might be a new lore versus old lore situation. My research online never came to any definitive conclusions either way. Beneath the patriarch of the Genestealer cult would be a primus, essentially the sergeants of their forces leading the troops into battle. 3rd or 4th generation hybrids whose children will be pure strain Genestealers. And as you can see from this picture, they tend to have more than 2 arms, marking them as closer to the pure strain than other variants. Other 3rd or 4th generation Genestealers with psyker abilities are known as maguses. They can act as ambassadors for the cult, interacting with outsiders, and they can also act as spiritual leaders within their cults. They're sort of like an awkward middle ground between an Eldari Farseer and a Tau Ethereal, while a Genestealer Calmavus acts more akin to an ecclesiarch, broadcasting their religious propaganda over Vox channels, recruiting new members to their cult and spreading fear throughout the lines of their enemies, and most commonly found among the ranks of the Pauper Princes. And biophages are the medics of Genestealer cults, and it was biophages of the Twisted Helix cult that found out that they could spread Tyranid DNA through food rations and other means, knowledge that eventually spread throughout the other cults as well. So none of these sergeant-type Genestealers are exclusive to any particular clans, but they're more common to some than others. And while they aren't exactly known to act as leaders, Kellermorphs are sort of on this same tier of Genestealer as well. They often act as lone heroes fighting against forces of tyranny. Heroic masked gunfighters who will liberate the population from authoritarian regimes, gunning down entire squadron of guardsmen and disappearing into the sunset, living on as a folk hero and drawing more and more people into the cult's grasp. This is almost terrifying in how clever it is, and leaves me once again wondering if Tyranids are a bioweapon designed by the old ones or if they are just the peak of natural evolution. And one of the important things to remember about humans infected by Genestealers is the fact that they are obsessed with their children, to an unhealthy level like some of the moms you'll see on TikTok these days, and will have as many hybrid children as possible. What you're seeing on screen right now are known as acolyte hybrids, 1st or 2nd generation hybrids who often stay closer to their patriarchs and can form tight covens around them. And when the cult does mobilize for war, they often act as shock troopers, striking their enemies from the shadows, often accompanied by their pure strain kin. Other 1st or 2nd generation hybrids can be known as metamorphs. These ones have the same biomechanical weaponry and scythe-like appendages of hive fleet tyranids. These mutations are apparently worshipped by the hybrids of later generations, as it marks these hybrids as closer to the holy hive fleets than the later generations could claim to be. Known as neophytes, these 3rd or 4th generation Genestealer hybrids can mostly pass off as human, and have even been known to infiltrate guardsmen and PDF forces, all the better to sabotage and steal from them, as well as trick other humans into procreating with them to create more hybrids, their own children once again reverting back to the pure strain. For raw brutish power, a cult of Genestealers can use an aberrant, which are these 3-armed mutated Genestealers who are often used for digging and manual labor. And then there are the abominants, which are usually the children of the aberrants, or aberrants that were experimented on by the Helix cult. While both of these enemies are more common in the Twisted Helix, they can be found among the numbers of any cult, and often require the guidance of a more intelligent Genestealer in order to be used to any real capacity. And a Locust is a twin saber-wielding Genestealer who is often used as a bodyguard for higher-ranking members of the cult, often found protecting Maguses, or Primuses, or Calamivuses. Meanwhile, Biophages typically have abominants as bodyguards, ones they've probably experimented on personally. And a Sanctus is a Genestealer assassin, often deployed to eliminate investigators who are about to stumble upon the cult's existence, or to eliminate high-ranking officials that can be replaced by Genestealer cultists. And then there are the Atalan Jackals, which are just Genestealers on motorcycles most commonly found in the Rusted Cog cult, since it's pretty hard to find, maintain, and drive around in a motorcycle in an Imperial Hive city. Oops, I almost forgot the Nexos, the cult's military strategist. They also have the unique ability to absorb the memories of all other cult members, making them an incredibly important support unit. Genestealer cults can be an incredibly dangerous enemy to face, capable of both subterfuge and straight-up assaults, with units that can even hang toe-to-toe with the Adeptus Astartes. But their greatest strength is in playing the long game, hiding in the shadows and building up their forces. And the loss of their patriarch can cripple the entire cult. But if even a single pure-strain Genestealer escapes, they can rebuild. Meaning that even when a cult is destroyed, they're never truly destroyed, because there's always more Genestealers. They're like a virus. Not only are they not entirely curable, but they change the DNA of the cities they're in. And I can't help but wonder if the human DNA introduced into them might one day affect the warp. Maybe create a chaos god of the Great Devourer. Probably not, but it's an interesting idea to mull over. And while Genestealers can infect other humanoid species, it's very uncommon. Orc Genestealer hybrids tend to be overwritten, being more loyal to the Orc collective consciousness than their original hive fleets. The Eldar can sense a Genestealer coming from a mile away and can immediately point out who's infected. And the Tau brainwashing by the ethereal caste makes them somewhat immune to a Genestealer psychic abilities. While there are plenty of other xenos species out in the 40k galaxy, their most common targets are just humans. And there are a few special variants of pure strain Genestealers I want to go over before I wrap this video up. This one you're seeing right now, this handsome fella, is called a Ymgarl Genestealer, and these were among the first Genestealers ever encountered by the Imperium. Their distinctive squid-like faces seem to be a byproduct of almost exclusively eating the indigenous life forms on the planet of Ymgarl, and they almost act as a deterrent for humanity to recolonize or terraform worlds that were destroyed by tyranids, as they will often be found hibernating on dead worlds, acting as ambush predators for any humans who would seek to recolonize them, or any other xenos who might get that idea, I guess. There are also adrenal Genestealers. They essentially have these polyp-shaped parasites clamped onto their body that produce adrenaline, making them faster, stronger, and more aggressive than a normal Genestealer already is, and they are essentially invulnerable to pain. Not that that's going to stop a bolter round blowing its face clean off. They can try to make the Genestealers seem as badass as they want, but their real strength lies in their numbers. There are the Vectori strain Genestealers, which were encountered by the Death Watch on the Space Hulk Mortis Thule. They are considered to be more agile and stealthy than normal Genestealers, which is a pretty impressive feat in its own right, with the trade-off being that they're weaker and have weaker natural armor, relying on ambushes and swarms rather than drop shock tactics. Lastly, there are the Maul-strain Genestealers, which are unique to Necromunda, a product of mutation brought on by the world's radioactive atmosphere. And pollution. We can't forget about the pollution. After doing my research for this video, I have to say that Genestealer cults are a much more well-rounded army than I thought they would be. I went into this video with the disposition that they were only really suited for Necromunda or Kill Team or other small-scale games, but in reality they could deploy forces equal to or even greater than Guardsmen sometimes. The neophytes can lay down covering fire with stolen lives rifles, while pure-strain Genestealers and other stealth units sneak behind their lines and eliminate their commanders, and a lot of this transfers over to tabletop as well. You can give a Sanctus a sniper rifle and have him taking out the support units of the enemy's army. And I have to say, if I was a guardsman, I would much rather be deployed to fight against orcs than Genestealers. At least the orcs are straightforward in how they're going to fight you. The fact that a pure-strain Genestealer could infiltrate the mind of one of your comrades and you would never even know it. The fact that a 3rd or 4th generation hybrid could be wearing the same uniform you are. No thanks, man. Give me the green skins any day. Alright, that's just about all I got for this video. Thank you guys for watching. Have a good one, you hear? Or else.